Hebrew Jewish belief, seraphim word means snake or serpent, if you take it back to its origin. You have the flying serpent disc, which is widely used in the ancient world. And another thing that they did was they symbolized the heavens as the upper ocean. We have the ocean that we have, obviously, and then you had the upper ocean, which was the heavens. And so they talked about the gods and the serpent gods coming in their heavenly boats through the upper ocean. And so you have a lot of marine symbolism, which doesn't relate to the sea, it relates to the upper ocean. And it's reading this. These bloodlines were known in the ancient world under different symbols and different codes, like children from heaven and earth, and children of the gods, children of the sky. And another big symbol of these gods, these serpent gods, were the watchers. They were called the watchers. This is widely found. And that's why there's an eye, as Credo Mutwa confirmed, on that hand on the necklace of the mysteries. That's the watchers, that's the serpent gods. And that's why we have the eye on top of the pyramid, the all-seeing eye on the dollar bill, and why that is a massive Illuminati symbol in the secret society network. They are the gods overseeing the pyramid of control. One way that they often symbolized these hybrid bloodlines in the ancient world was as part human, down to the bottom of the torso, and then the legs or the bottom part being a snake. You come across this a great deal when you research this stuff. This is all symbolic of this half human, half snake symbolism. Over and over and over again you see it. And the cobra, like I say, is very much a common symbol of these serpent gods, as is fighting the serpent gods and battles with them. Even the word Messiah comes from Mesa, the Nile crocodile, which they use the oil from the Nile crocodile to anoint the pharaohs. And even today in the British coronation ceremony, they symbolize that as part of our own ceremony appropriately. In the Bible, the devil is symbolized or described in reptilian terms. The old serpent called the devil and Satan, who deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Fallen angels, again, the recurring theme. All these folk tales about kissing frogs and turning into princes, and invariably you get reptilian themes, all part of the same story. And people send me images from all over the world as a result of the information I put out. It's amazing how many times you see this symbol of reptile and humans, or part human, part reptile. Or overseeing the gargoyles in the palaces and castles and churches of this elite are symbolic of that. And of course, over the last, 20 years or so, there's been a massive reptilian symbolism in children's stories and children's entertainment. And then recently, you saw this, is a quick one, this 16th century painting in the National Portrait Gallery of Queen Elizabeth I, they thought she was holding flowers because that's what someone had painted over. But with where what's underneath is coming to light, and this is a representation of it. It was in one of the papers, again holding the snake, very, very appropriate. And these aristocratic families, which became the hybrids, again used reptilian, dragon, and all these other serpent images on their various coats of arms and what have you. And one of the centres, like I said earlier, is London. Not necessarily London, the Great Conurbation, but the City of London and the temple that runs into the City of London. The City of London, of course, being the great centre of not just British finance, but global finance. And how appropriate that they too have the symbol of the flying dragon and the symbol of the Knights Templar Secret Society, a major strand in this web of secret societies, as the very symbol of the City of London. You pass these as you go into the city, of course. Another theme you find with images around the world is of serpents eating humans. And not nice, it isn't, of course, but they do eat humans. When these reptilians come into visible light, they use humans as their food, like humans use animals, cattle, sheep. And then you'll see the recurring theme all over the world. This is in Central America, the Mayan area. This is a painting by Credo Mutwa from South African myths of the serpent gods, the Chitahuri, eating humans. And this is Alfa Romeo. What's he doing there? What's he bloody doing there? Same thing. And in the garden of one of the palaces, or whatever you call them, mansions of Silvio Berlusconi in Italy, the leader and one of the world's most corrupt men, is, again, the same image. And outside of visible light, they feed off human energy, human emotion, especially, only low vibrational emotion, because that's all they can really access. And so they have to keep humans in a state of mental and emotional suppression so that we keep feeding out this energy, which they then absorb. And that will become relevant in the next section when I get into why paedophilia is so widespread among this elite. Because energy changes with the emotions we give out. When we give out love, that's a certain wavelength. When we give out hate, it's a very different wavelength. And the friend of mine in Japan has become very well known for taking water, his name's Mr. Emoto, taking water, putting it in a container, and then he'll put words of love or hate or whatever on the side of it, because when you write a word, that word may seem in the decoded realm as a word you can see and read, but in the vibrational realm, it represents a vibration. If you could see the vibration of writing the word hate to writing the word love, it would be dramatic. In fact, you're looking at it. Because what happens is, after he's put the word on the side of the water, he then freezes the water really, really fast. I've seen his laboratory where he does it. And then he photographs the crystals. This is the crystal from a water that had love and appreciation written on it. This is the crystal that had hate written on the side of the water. And he's done whole books about this stuff with all these pictures in it. And this is the energy that these entities absorb when they're outside of visible light, which is most of the time. And therefore, they have to keep us in a state that keeps producing that. All this vampire stuff, because they drink human blood with invisible light because it carries the human genetic code and allows them to hold their vibrational compatibility with this reality for longer before they have to get the hell out of it. That's why they drink so much blood. And then there's this thing about shape-shifting, where, I've had a lot of, laughter and ridicule. So what's bloody new about this? And people say, well, you can't go from a solid body to a solid body and back again. And I'm saying, do you know? I agree with you. Of course you can't. But that's not what's happening, because there is no solid body. It's all happening as a decoding system. There is no solidity. So what shape-shifting is you have a situation like this, and the front dominating from our perception of observation energy field is the human one. So we look at George Bush or somebody, and we see a human. But sometimes, especially at times of high emotion, this shift can happen where the reptilian field comes forward. And as it does so, becomes the dominant one, often briefly, the observer now starts decoding that. And then it shifts back, and you start decoding this. And to the observer, decoding that shift, creating the holographic reality in their head, which is where everything happens, to their observation, someone's gone from a human to a reptilian, and then back to human again. It's not, of course, shifting solidity. She's a hologram like we're all holograms, and they can shift. This is where shape-shifting happens, what we call physical shape-shifting, illusory, in our heads. So the road to tyranny began when these reptilians arrived. Before that, like I say, the world was very different. The golden age, the time when humans were just extraordinary before the suppression. And then came this energetic schism, this distortion in the information construct, which got played out into the holographic world as, on one level, as massive geological events, with volcanoes and storms and what have you, and of course symbolized by Noah and the Great Flood, though there have been many of these, not just one. And Noah is simply a biblical version of much, much older stories that tell exactly the same story of how the earth turned over, how there was a massive flood, tidal waves, what we would call today tsunamis, how there were great geological catastrophes and upheavals, and basically the world was, certainly the society that went before, was destroyed. It was a blank sheet of paper. And in this distortion, humans lost the power of the connection they had to higher levels of awareness. And this happened. We went from being part of the field, knowingly so, and to being taken over and suppressed by this reptilian race. Because once the blank sheet of paper was created by the geological catastrophe, and why that happened I'll come to not very long from now, the Earth started to settle down, and when it settled down, then everything started to be rebuilt, but in a very, very different, much lower level than it was before. And there was the genetic manipulation too. And in China, unlike most other countries, you can't access vast tracts of the internet because the computer system has been firewalled off to stop Chinese people accessing that area of the internet that the authorities don't want them to see. What happened as a part of this intervention, I kind of mentioned it a little earlier, is that human genetics were manipulated to do exactly the same to us, to firewall off us from the level of reality that we could access before. So we went into this prison called visible light that we've been in ever since, and particularly isolated in the left side of the brain so that we only perceive through the five senses, and we can only see structure and language and hierarchy and all that stuff, and our potential dramatically reduced. And this world came as a result of it. And it's dominated by controlling human perception, by suppressing our true self and dictating what we bring into holographic reality. Okay, now let's go really crazy. I've had enough of only being half crazy. Let's do the bloody lot, eh? What I want to say before I go into this is this. One of the most profound ways that people are controlled is to limit their sense of possibility. Your sense of possibility becomes your sense of what is possible. Now that's an obvious thing and it's a truism, but often we miss what's in front of our eyes. In other words, if you can program a sense of what's possible and make it narrow and incredibly limited, then when people come along and say this is going on, these people say you're bloody mad, that's not possible. Listen, no, you don't believe it's possible. Talking to some of the insiders that I have over the years, and talking to other people who've done the same, there is a feeling among some of them that these entities technologically, and I keep emphasizing there's not that many of them compared with humans, and so therefore they have to keep out of sight, and it's one of the reasons, the major reason they want to cull the global population, because it's out of hand from their point of view. Well, stick around, it's going to be out of hand a bit more very soon. But they reckon, some of them, that this technology that these people are working with, these entities are working with, is like 10,000 years ahead of where we are. But that's a bit of a misnomer, because there's a line, like a Rubicon, of awareness of how reality works. And when you're this side of it, you are in a state of tremendous limitation. But once you cross it, and by realizing the nature of reality that I've been talking about today, suddenly you can move very fast in terms of your ability and your potential and all the rest of it. But while we're here, they reckon we're there about 10,000 years ahead. So we're dealing not with what we can do, but with what very advanced technological entities will do. Not spiritually advanced, intellectually, technologically advanced. What happened was that I was writing this latest book, and I sat down one morning. I've had one or two thoughts about this before, but they've come and gone. But I sat down one morning at the computer to start writing, and it was like, I've had this so many times in my life, in the last 20 years. It was like an energy field descends upon me, and suddenly I just knew the moon was not what it seems to be. It wasn't the heavenly body, the natural phenomenon that we believe that it is. And from that moment, information started to come to me in the five-sense world pointing to exactly that.